How you doing? Hey, oh, hi everyone. Sorry, I got a little discombobulated. I was printing out some things I wanted to show everybody. Um, anyway, hi Tony and Joseph and Junior and Andrew and Corbin. How you guys doing? Mark, Marcos, hey, Argentina, que bueno. Uh, anyway, today, what I wanted to talk about, I guess I've been, it's sort of a thing here. Let me get my, this is the, the watch movement that I got from 1870, and it was working perfectly well, and I got it in my watch, and it was great. This is it's a superfluous winder here. It's because this was a key wound that I wanted to get. And then I broke it naturally, so I'm good at that. I'll have to fix it. But one of the things I noticed about it is that, how different is this movement from 1780 or 1870, I mean, 1870, than, your typical ones you have today. And the reason I was asking it is that um, when when you have a watch, I was saying, okay, so you have a let's say an ETA, simple ETA, and somebody comes along and they work on it and they do stuff with it. Uh, for example, this is a one by Richard Harbring, and the movement here, they're A11. They started off using parts from a 7750 and some other kinds of things. And then at some point, it became the A11, which was wholly theirs. And this thing is, at least to me, it's my most accurate watch. It's a hand wound. I wind it up, keeps beautiful time, better than anything else. And until I broke it, this one took it kept really good time too. Uh, and then this one's got a double hairspring and for keeping the balance shaft straight, keeps fabulous time. And they're all fairly unique. And by unique, I mean these are things that aren't like most other movements. So the question we kicked around some this morning was, okay, so you have these movements by these really famous people, but some of them are based on something else. And the question I guess I have is trying to address is, what does it take for a watch? I mean, how much can you do with a watch with, between let's say 36 millimeters and 42 millimeters, and you have a certain little area in there, and you have a certain gear train, you got certain this and certain that, and what more does it take? you, I mean, so anyway, so I'm going to start off today. Let me greet everyone else. Hi, Tim. How you doing? Thomas, good to see you. Abdul. Um, hey, Crappy. How's it going? And let's see. Javier. Hello, Javier. Saludos from Staten Island. Isla de Staten. So anyway, okay. Let me start off with some examples that I had. And these are all by watchmakers who have their own movements. They've made them, and they're mostly like, they'll make tourbillons or something, really famous. And so let's take a look at these to get started. This first one is from, hang on a second, let me get this set up here, is from Antoine Prezuzzo. And this is a world timer, and it's got the 12, and then it goes around. It's 24 down where there's usually 6 o'clock, and it's day and night, and you've got this little earth thing moving. I'm not quite sure everything that it does, but it's got an ETA 2897 movement in it as the base. But a lot of it's been transformed And so it's not quite the same as a 2897, and certainly not one, like some, like, we pretentious but proud white watchmakers will go out and then buy a 2897, plop it in there, put on a, standard dial and hands and so forth, and have a nice little two or three hander. And so it's something different. Okay, it's sort of started off, but not quite the same. Here's another example. Um, this is, and by the way, too, Antoine Prezioso has won a Grand Prix award. In fact, I think he won two in the same year, which is sort of unusual. And this was for a watch called the Tourbillon of Tourbillons. So I mean, these guys are not like people who slap an ETA in something and call it something else. They say, oh, they got an ETA and build it on this. So the other one, this is some of these you've seen before. Now, this one to me was very interesting. This is by Vincent Calabrese, Chronos. And you have a jumping hour, and then you have this little time here. This is Chronos was, I think, the god of time, and he was some other stuff too. And this is one of his daughters, and she's chasing her youth on this. And this is like, that's really an interesting movement. And the 2892 is, something. This is what you end up with a 2892, something like this, a little three-hander, which is, that would be a standard use of it. But here you have jumping hours, you've got these, and this thing goes around and all kinds of stuff going on here. Now, another thing that I was we had talked about before in one of my earlier videos, and this is by what's called Upside Down by Ludwig Ballard. Now, this watch, you remember, is really an incredible watch. Each one of these it's upside down, and when it's at the correct time, this is the back of it. It flips around. But what he took to start with, he took the gear train from a Pazu 7001, and I think also the barrel. So he's got two little parts of it, but that's all. And why a 7001? Well, you can see here that you have a pretty small area for the movement in the Pazu 7001. Is small. It's hand wound, 3 hertz, wonderful little movement. And then most of the the real sort of master watchmaking takes place out here. But he didn't even have the whole movement. He just used the wheel train and the barrel. Now, this last one is one I just discovered, and I've done a lot. I've made a lot of watches with the 6498, and I know it pretty well. I mean, I know the movement pretty well. But this is this guy did this. This is Mickey Ileta. These are all guys from the AHCI, the sort of the independent group. Now, what he has, you can see the little gear teeth around here, and this thing moves around, and the hour hand is sort of part of this, and so this whole thing moves around here, and it's, this is not your typical 6498 by any stretch of the imagination. If you look at the back, you can, if you've made some watches with that before, you can recognize certain of the sort of the layout and certain parts of it. But what this guy's done is totally transform it. So I guess the question is that, all right, well, how much of it do you transform to make it like, okay, now this is my movement? Okie doke. So what do you guys think? Hi, Michael. Mark. Hi, Mark. Forbin. Let's see. Calabrese seems apropos the erotic and porno. No, 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 no. I don't think so. This is from a um, Greek god. This guy right here is nuts. He he had as a one of the Greek gods. I think his name was also Saturn, Kronos and Saturn. There's a famous painting in the Prado, and have this guy eating this, like like a hoagie, is crunching down on one of his children. He ate all of his male children because of some weird, a lot of this Greek mythology is about as weird as you can get. But I don't, this doesn't get anywhere near the porno stuff at all. The question is to what extent. Here you have a jumping hour that goes around, and then you got all of this other stuff going on. By the way, too, the painting that he had on this was by this German Japanese guy. It's really interesting. The whole thing is very interesting. But again, the movement. Hey, Joseph, what's up? A significant modification tells working under great constraints, which can be very difficult. Well, yeah, it is not only that. I think more than difficult too, it requires talent. All right. Now, that's one of the things as a pretentious watchmaker myself. I don't have any talent, except I seem to have a talent for breaking movements. But other than that, I put these different ones together, and it's sort of fun and make watches with them. But what am I doing? I'm taking basically a case, a dial, hands, movement, and putting together and put them in a watch, and you know that's it. The 6498 is already a good movement that is highly accurate. Oh, I agree, Mark. Yeah, it is a good movement, and I think the movements that I've seen a lot of these really good watchmakers use are the ones that we talked about here. The 2892 A2 over the I think it's 2824, something like that. That's not as popular. The 6498, they've done all kinds of stuff with them. This is, some of there's, to me, or this is one of the things we talked about this morning. You say, well, what about his finishing? To me, finishing is finishing, okay? But it's not horology. It's part of it. I know that, but it's sort of like, somebody builds a car versus somebody who waxes your car, or finishes it or paints it. But the horological part, at least as far as I'm concerned, or at least the kind of thing I think is important, is the stuff that makes your watch move in some way, in terms of timekeeping. Hi, Michael. What's up? Did the 6498 variant keep the main plate? Boy, probably did, but you can take a look at this. You can see the front and the back. In the front, this part right here is pretty familiar. There's at 6 o'clock. There you have the second hand, and that's on all 6498s. It'll be down here. If it was a 6497, the second hands would be over here. And so, but what he's done, I mean, there's nothing like this inside gear track on watches with 6498. On the back, what he did here, you have a couple. There's some finger bridges right here for a couple of the wheels in the wheel train, and then you have this bridge right here. But you can recognize yeah, those are the parts, but they simply cut up the plate on the thing and made it a little more accessible. Actually, I think I like the ones that have totally have nothing but finger bridges for the individual gears in the gear train. He's got this other thing he had too, and I'm not quite sure what this is, but this was another, I think, an option you can get with that. But this is a guy too. This is the only watch he makes. He makes all of these wonderful clocks, and he decided, well, he wanted to make a watch, so this is what he came up with. And there's sort of where's the line of demarcation on that? Hi, how you doing, Clyde? Good to see you. Changing the architecture of the wheel train is a significant modification. Also, modifying the nature of the escapement is very. Yeah. Now this, um, I don't know to what extent any modification to the escapement was done on these. Uh, it's quite possible they did. I think they had some kind of idea. They say, okay, I want to do this with it, and I don't want to have to worry about the wheel train and get the, what's going to run. I'll just throw in X, Y, and Z, and then cut it up and fix it up the way I want it. And but at some point comes along saying, oh, well, this is not this is not a movement that its mother would recognize. And just like this one, I think there was some earlier stuff they were using the 7750, and of course the 7750 is a chronograph, and the A11 is not a chronograph at all. It's so, but he did some work on one, and uh, like I said, this watch is almost scary accurate for a purely mechanical watch. The separate escape wheel bridge, yeah, me too. Um, Finishing makes it look nice, but making it work and maintain or improve the accuracy says something about the craft of horology. I agree, Mark. I'm pretty sure it is. Hey, Phil, how's it going? Had to go to the hospital last night for pneumonia. My God, good grief! What? I hope you're better. Pneumonia is nothing to that. I guess in this day and age, it's like, no, oh, just pneumonia, but pneumonia, that can kill you. So, good grief! What do you you need rest and relaxation, Clyde? Um, Harboring 2 speaks to me like that. Great watchmaking that's well finished, but not particularly decorated at all. Yeah, Andrew, I think you're right. You have almost a Bauhaus kind of finishing on the A11 on the Harboring 2. Search for Mike. Oh yeah, his clocks are great. Yeah, Forbin's right. You're right about that. His clocks are really amazing. This is the only watch that he makes, and I thought, but since he used a 6498 on it, I thought, well, this would be interesting to sort of kick around as, okay, so where do we draw the line at something? So okay, this is a movement that is sort of like the movement by the watchmaker, or it's such a movement that we can look at it in a way that we wouldn't look at one that came out the assembly line, at ETA or Sleet or wherever they got it. Yeah, Andrew, you were in a hospital too. That's yeah. I think we talked about that some this morning. Knock on wood. I I don't want to end up in a hospital. Yeah, Abdul. Yeah, they sort of what an industrial finish. That's one way of putting it. One of the things that, in speaking of finishing, when we were talking, and we're going to be, we got to crank up this our project that we started with Aganor, but sometime like September, October, when we can, if we have to, we can run over there and talk with them and stuff. Right now, just too hard during the pandemic um, to do that, but I think it'd be a heck of a thing to do, because here you have the one we were talking about was a base movement by Aganor, and then adding a module for the jumping hour and the retrograde minutes. Great watch, and with a movement that's sort of like, of course, we didn't invent it. We don't have, but we asked. This is the kind of movement we did ask for, and I just think, man, that would be such a cool thing to have. Okay. The rancher, I hope that you are feeling better now. That is a terrible news. Yeah, good grief. Better than the alternative. Yeah, I know. We, you got to take care of yourself. Um, okay. Let's see what's going on here. Okie doke. All right. Oh my goodness, Andrew. Good grief. Yeah, I know. You can't. You, boy, you have not been fortunate on that. Fortunately, no stroke. That's a good thing. Suspected Ramsay Hunt syndrome from the shingles virus. God. Okay, yeah, that's another thing. Get a shingles thing. 7901 Peizu. What are those Maltese cross-like parts? Oh boy. What are they called? They're, I think, and I could be wrong, I think they work some mechanism with stop seconds. Anyone can correct me if they want. Uh, Geez, okay, the word. I got to get a giant watch case for Andrew and Clyde. I'm going to put you guys in it so you stay safe. Yeah, mental health is good. Okay, so what do you guys think in terms of what would you have to do? Like to me, this one, if you, I mean, like how many, for a, this is the inner area of the movement. For a movement area this big, how many options do you have in terms of really, what kind of wheel train look like? You've got certain gears with certain number of teeth so that they're different for the minute hand, the hour hand, and a second hand. And so you have that, but within a case, and if you want a smaller one that goes in the center like this one right here, is that something that's like, oh, well, you used a Pazoo 7001 wheel train, and then you use the same barrel. Well, the reason they did it is that they're packed into that small place. Now, I suppose you could go out and invent your own on that if, but I think he said he was looking at the main thing was to have the upside down and so have everything turn around on the hour, which is a really interesting uh, function on it. Okay. Yeah. Good advice, Thomas. Get plenty of rest. Okay. Start with an Omega 661, tons of room for expansion around the outside. Okay. Yeah. Michael, I don't know what an Omega 661 is. Do you know the dimensions of it? Is it a big one? Is it a small one? Is it a hand wound or what? Maybe some kind of module can be stuck onto an ETA. Yeah, this was another thing, and I mentioned this morning. If you look at class projects, okay, for watch school, you can find it. Okay, 50 millimeter. Yeah, Michael, that's pretty small. Okay, some kind of module can be stuck onto an ETA. Let me tell you, this was a WOSOP, I think the name of what's the famous watch school that watchmakers go to, is that they have a school project. And this guy took a school project. He took his an ETA 6498. This is a one I broke. And there it is. Um, he he took it, and right down here is your second hand, and then in the middle you have your hour hand and a minute hand. And what he did, he moved the hour hand up here. Now, how we did that, I don't know. But this was as a school project. Um, you know, that's more than. just sort of, I don't know what, maybe adding a module to it. I guess that is adding a module to it. But it's the kind of thing that to me is interesting because it's, if somebody claiming to have an original movement in their watch and asking for a whole lot of money for that, uh, you'd think, well, okay, how much of that is, where does that come from? And what I'm beginning to think is that they're all, you go back to Breguet if you want, and looking at this thing, this one with this movement, is that it's pretty simple. You got a barrel, your wheel train, your escapement, your balance, and your spring, and that's it. That's a mechanical watch. So your winding can either be with a key or with a keyless work. Excuse me, got the hiccups. Anyway, um, okay. The 661 is the Lady Matic. Okay, I guess this is an automatic you're talking about, Michael. Okay, Raj, see, I've got a 2824 with a Dupraz 9000 module in it, which does that make it a chronograph, Roger? Or Raj? Curious about that. The Dupraz wasn't that the one that was that the El Primero was racing against at one time? That was such a moon. Okay, that's the moon phase aspect to it. Okay. All right. Now, what can you do with the moon phase? Well, you can do a lot of different things, or you can take the moon phase as it's simply a different gearing that you may have, for example, for the date. A lot of times you'll see the date is not there, but they've used the date and they've modified it, I guess, modified the gear so it becomes a moon phase. Something like that. Okay, so if you're going to make your own movement, and where do you start? And I guess if you start with somebody else's, or you start with sort of the traditional, what I'll call the traditional, simple hand wound or automatic or something, off you go. Okay. Well, Clyde's under the weather, so he usually tells me when the frying pan is coming down and time for me to run away. Let's see, let me get these last ones here. I was a little late, so I can add a little more. Watches with ETA-based movement with modifications and/or should be given more credit and love. Often they can be superior to in-house moves for the same type of complication. Um, you know, when I look at some of these, they add a complication to a base ETA. You're right. See, ETA isn't a bad movement. This is what I think has gotten the ETA in more trouble than it deserves. ETA is relatively inexpensive movement. At one time it was, especially. And so you'd be paying, let's say, $100 for the movement that you're putting in a watch and charging $5,000. And I think this is where a lot of watch companies got in trouble. You take Panerai, their famous 318, and you had this totally unfinished ETA in there, which was sort of the cheapest ETA you could buy. And, but they were charging something like it was an in-house movement. Now, there are different levels, but you take even a medium level ETA movement, it's pretty nice movement. But I guess what got them in most trouble was the fact that, companies like Breitling and IWC and Cartier and some of these other ones would say, well, I got a Cartier movement or I've got a IWC movement, but in fact, they'd give it something that would imply it was an in-house movement, but it was one of these very inexpensive ones. The reason they don't want to say anything is that they'd be, what are you charging for? A dial and a case? Saturday timekeeper. Okay. All right, guys. Well, listen, everybody be safe. Somebody suggested to Clyde and to Andrew to get rest. That's very important. Do something very calming, something that you enjoy doing. And be careful because these things, man, mm, we have some real bad stories of some friends with COVID, and it was not did not have a happy ending, unfortunately. And it's just important for all you guys to stay safe. I've got both my shots. I still wear those masks. I'm not crazy about the mask, but it it helps. It really does help keep everybody safe. So hang in there.